then what we've done, I think, differently. One of the things that we're finding is we always talked about, like, can we get people to cry in game? Can we get people to cry in game?
To people to cry in a game? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. Not in the game, but cry while they're playing a game. And more games have achieved this over time. Last of Us, I think, it did some good stuff there. Other games. So this, certainly not the first, but it's always kind of a goal that a lot of designers have been like, if we can get people to cry the way they do in a movie or something. Right. We have a lot of people crying now. And it's not because it's too hard.
Yeah, right.
We had that problem in the past. But, it's just like what we did was in being able to have a higher fidelity of animation and database for our characters, it allowed us to get more subtle in the storytelling. Like if all you have is, very simplistically modeled expressive capability in the characters, then they have to say everything, right? Because their facial expression isn't going to communicate subtleties. And so you find yourself with limited resolution of fidelity characters. You're making stories typically more blatant or more obscure. When I think of more obscure, I'm thinking of like that game company's game and a designer his name is slipping me at the moment, but he's brilliant. You know that game company?
No, I don't think so.
What's the name of Journey, the game called Journey.
Oh, okay. Never played it.
Okay. Well, it has, it's very, very simple characters that just have a lot of character to look at them. You know what I mean?
See.
It's like they're very curious, but you don't know a lot about them, and you never do. But it becomes very compelling. Well, and some of the things, they were just able to use some technological trips that made it feel very lofty, very anti-gravity, very physicsy, kind of real. And that works. But when you're telling more story and you have to get story points across, plot points across, missions across, character plights across, all of those things, and you're dealing with a low resolution 3D animated database, it's kind of a bitch.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So what you wind up doing is you start writing more blatantly, more obviously. Well, in this one, we really beefed up the resolution of the characters. We went into a whole nother escalation of the Gluckins, and we did something that I call more of a hyper expressive rigging, where normally with 3D animation, you're not distorting the faces too much. It's more like they set up like bones and, more like humans in terms of you're not squash and stretching. This technology doesn't want to do that as much. Like you saw a lot of squash and stretch disappear from 3D graphics out of animation. The history of animation was all squashy and stretchy. Got to 3D, that was way more difficult, right? So they just get a good performance and they're happy, or motion capture and they're happy. But for us, we were like, let's get these characters hyper expressive, where it's like manga, does this well. Anime does this well at times, where the eyes are almost 2 times the size of what they should be, right? Film effects do this occasionally, where they just go in and you'll take someone's eyes a little more than the actual camera cover, caught, just to amp up that sense of character emotion. And so we really dialed up, we took that to 11 on this one. And that meant we had to really go into the databases, a whole nother level of ZBrush level, a whole nother level of character rigging. And even the first rigs that we did, we come back and we go, that's not the target, because those eyes aren't scaling. Like Abe, if he's, his dominant expression in this game is probably having an overwhelming epiphany, or just completely like, oh my God, like he's learning things we don't know, but they must be mind blowing, and it needs to read on his face. And the Gluckins are just like, I kind of love them because they're just the biggest assholes. They just like, they're always hanging up on their health and their security teams. They're just rude and pompous and arrogant. So we could play off of their characters different. And we did their faces in this way as well. And so we were just able to get, I wanted so that any still frame of a real, a deep story moment or a cinematic story moment, almost any still frame that involved the characters, if you looked at a frame, you could tell what was going on, what they were each thinking by looking at their faces. So in a great movie, that would kind of happen naturally, right?
Play like a silent
really
film or something.
Plan for it. Yeah, exactly. And we were playing off of that silent era performance anyway. Like we wanted things to be kind of over the
Right.
top, and so that subtlety of animation allowed us to change the writing style. This is how I felt. And by resing it up, by having a higher fidelity of rigging, animation, texture maps on the characters, rendering capability,